Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our final Steelers recap for the 2016 regular season. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash. The Steelers needed overtime to beat the Browns in Week 17. Landry Jones at quarterback, garbage in the first half, kind of better in the second half, 3 touchdowns. Did he have a pick? He had 3 touchdowns, I know that.
Yeah, he had 1 interception.
Okay, yeah, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He had a 103.1 QB rating. A nice pass on that last play of the game. A lot of people think he made himself millions of dollars. Me, not so much.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. He didn't do that great in this game. I was complaining about him all game, but in the end, he did go down and score the game-winning touchdown when they really needed. The defense stepped up right before that because, I mean, they really didn't stop the run all game long, and then they were able to stop them in a first-and-goal situation because of a sack. And then Landry Jones went down. Even when the Steelers got the ball there in overtime, I said, I really don't feel good about this, but he went right down the field.
You know, the one thing that concerns me about this game, Sean Davis, Artie Burns, and Mike Mitchell were 1, 2, and 3 in tackles for the Steelers defense. When your defensive backs are leading your team in tackles, that means your front seven's not doing a good enough job.
Yeah, well, we know Cameron Hayward's been out. Stephon Tuitt wasn't playing in this game. And Javon Hargrave got hurt in this game as well. So they were playing backups along the front 3 there, really. Front 4, front 3, whatever they were in. But really, the starting defense was pretty much in for a lot of this game. You look at the offense, you can't really take anything out of it because no one was playing. But defensively, most of the starters were in.
You know what I liked offensively was DeMarcus Ayers. I think that kid showed more in this game than Sammy Coates did in the playoff game last year that got everybody all hyped up about Sammy Coates. So I feel like if that game got him all the hype in the offseason, this game should get equal amount of hype for Ayers, although I know it won't because it wasn't on as big of a stage. I just think that I like this guy. I'm not saying he's some big time he should start or anything, but for where we got him, being the fact that he's on the practice squad most of the year, you had him, Kobe Hamilton, and Darius Hayward-Bay. They all pretty much stepped up for Landry Jones. He completed a pass to 8, 9 different receivers, something like that. So as a whole, I didn't expect much else out of the offense, although I didn't think it would take overtime to be able to beat the Browns. I was just a little disappointed in the effort by the defense in the first half. It seemed like they didn't really care.
Yeah, well, they couldn't stop the run, man. Look at this. 231 yards rushing from this Cleveland offense. George Atkinson got in the end zone. But back to the Steelers receivers. Eli Rogers looked pretty good in this game as the number 1 receiver. 6 catches, 61 yards. But you're right, DeMarcus Ayers, he kind of looks like another Eli Rogers out there. I kind of like this guy. So if it happened to be Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant, Eli Rogers and DeMarcus Ayers is your 1 through 4, I wouldn't mind that either going in the next season.
Do you give Sammy Coates a helmet on Sunday? Now, like we said, AB is going to be back, and then you have Ayers, you have Kobe Hamilton, you have Darius Hayward-Bay, and you have Eli Rogers. Do you give Sammy Coates an active spot on the roster, or do you just have him sit down considering he hasn't produced since week 6, I believe, of the season?
Well, I think I'm not worried about him at receiver. I don't think he's going to do much, but who do you want kick returning? Sammy Coates has turned into our best kick returner, really, and I'd like to see Eli Rogers have a couple shots at kick return. He might have had 1 or 2. I think he was punt returning in this game, actually. But Darius Hayward-Bay could be a guy you could put back there at kick return, too. So I'm not quite so sure. I mean, you got a lot of receivers here that I like better than Sammy Coates at this point. But if you think Coates is your best kick returner, you may want to dress him.
I'm impressed with Terrell Pryor from this season. His first full year as a wide receiver in the league, he goes over 1,000 yards. Is he a product of being the only good offensive player, or does he actually have some skills at the position?
Yeah, we were talking about this in the preview. I think he's a pretty good player, and if he could go somewhere else, he could put up huge numbers, I think. But it's probably going to happen where Cleveland does find a way to re-sign this guy.
You think he's a number 1, or you think he's just a really good number 2?
I think he can step into that number 1 role. You got to remember, this was really his first season as a starter anywhere on the offense, I guess. Well, he did start as a quarterback at one point for Oakland, I believe, but did he ever really start for Cleveland?
No.
So really, I mean, from what you see out of a guy for his first season at wide receiver, he looks really good. I think he can step into that number one receiver role.
Are you worried about the Steelers' run defense?
It depends. Do you know who's going to be playing? Because with Stephon Tuitt out, it definitely doesn't look as good. And when Javon Hargrave came out, it even got worse. So, yeah, it depends on who's playing up front there. But if we're healthy, I think we'll be okay.
I know Tuitt's playing. I believe Hargrave's playing.
Yeah, so I think they'll be all right up front. And now you got to remember, Jay Ajayi ran all over him last time around. So we'll have to see. That's what you got to stop in that game. And we've seen in this game that they were unable to stop Crowell. 19 carries, 152 yards. Duke Johnson took a backseat to that. George Atkinson, he actually had a pretty solid game. 7 carries, 34 yards, and a touchdown as well. And RG3 had 32 yards rushing as well. So, yeah, I'm a little worried about this run game. Like you said, all the D-backs were leading the team in tackles, and that's never a good thing either. I actually heard that Jarvis Jones is one of the best run-stopping linebackers in the league, but he's one of the bottom pass rushers out of the linebacker position.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to say one of the best run stoppers, but I totally agree.
I think he ranked like 10th or something. They did some kind of ranking.
Yeah, that Pro Football Focus ranks everybody in a bunch of weird ways, so that might be where it was from. But he's always been solid against the run, which is weird because you take him high in the draft, they're usually good at rushing the passer and struggle against the run. He's really turned into a solid linebacker against the run, but terrible against the pass. I don't know. He might come back to Pittsburgh on a 1-year, $3 million deal. I don't know, but long term, I don't. He's a rotational guy. That's about it. And it's funny, we talked about if he had a really good game, would the Steelers re-sign him? And I think he had a pretty good game, honestly.
Yeah, he had a sack in this game as well. Daniel McCullers had a sack. Bud Dupree.
6th of his career?
Yeah, something like that. I tell you what, was this the worst game for the refs all season? I swear these refs were horrible in this game. Did you see the false start that they didn't even feel like calling?
Late in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too. And that they even showed a replay of it, and you've seen it clear as day in the replay. It was ridiculous.
And then Cleveland had a punt return late in the game, and there was a block in the back and a blatant hold on the play, and they decided not to call either one of them, and it was a pretty nice return to nearly midfield, I believe it was. And I think on the same play there was a false start, was when they called Mike Mitchell for a face mask when they had a hold of his face mask and threw him to the ground.
Yeah, his hand grazed the other guy's, but the other guy grabbed his and yanked on it, and he didn't get a call. So it was pretty pathetic effort by the refs all around. I guess they figured nobody cares about the Cleveland Browns.
D'Angelo Williams had a slow start to this game and really had 23 carries for 67 yards, so they didn't do much on the ground, really. He did get into the end zone, but he did pick it up a little bit later in the game and started breaking off a few big chunks of yardage. But I am glad to see him get 23 carries, so we know he looks healthy right now. And if something did happen to Le'Veon Bell, I think we could trust D'Angelo Williams in the playoffs. So if Le'Veon went down now, I think we should feature Le'Veon in this game against Miami. But if he did go down, I don't think it would be over. I think the only person that if they went down, the game would be over, and that's Big Ben. But Landry Jones came out and had a solid game with those 3 touchdowns as well, nearly 300 yards passing. But again, he didn't look that good in this game. He had a lot of bad throws. That pick looked terrible, and that pick actually could have came back to haunt them, and they could have lost this game if it wasn't for who was it that Darius Hayward-Bay caused that fumble going into the end zone there, where Landry Jones recovered it. That's the one thing that Landry did on that play, is at least he ran down to the end zone so he could make that recovery. But that throw was horrible.
Cleveland definitely gave the Steelers this football game. They should have won.
Oh, yeah, definitely. RG3 looked real good coming out of the game, man. They couldn't stop him at all.
RG, so I was just waiting to hear snap and watch him limp off the field.
Yeah, I think he did get hurt in his game, didn't he?
Probably. He gets hurt every time he puts a freaking uniform on.
They actually had 4 fumbles in his game, lost 3 of them. Sean Davis came up with that big fumble recovery on what was it, a bad snap or something, or G3 fumbled.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean Davis looked like he was all over the field again, man. This is one of our best players, and we need him to keep playing like he has been throughout the playoffs.
Are you more concerned with the starting defense for the Steelers or more optimistic about the backup offensive players outside of Landry Jones? Because I feel like offensively, they didn't have a great game. It's not like they went out and put up a lot of points. But the only receiver that we had on our team that was drafted before the 7th round was Darius Hayward-Bay.
Yeah, but they look pretty solid out there. Not really any mistakes by the wide receivers. DeMarcus Ayers had 12 targets in this game. He only came up with 5 catches. That has something to do with Landry Jones, obviously. But I don't know. I like what I've seen out of the offensive backups, I guess. And defensively, I mean, you look over the past 2 weeks, man, the Baltimore Ravens had something like 122 yards rushing on them, 231 this past week. That's what, over 350 yards in the past 2 games just on the ground. So I don't know if I'm worried about it. Since you believe Tuitt is coming back and Hargrave's going to be healthy, you've seen with those 2 players for a good stretch there, they were able to stop the run. So I would have to say right now the defense, just because I don't know how healthy Tuitt and Hargrave are at this point.
Anything else to take from Sunday's game against Cleveland?
Not really, man. The only thing that stood out to me was that run defense and how bad it looked, because really I didn't feel like taking anything from the offense because it was all backups, and we know Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell are going to be the ones touching the ball 99% of the time on this offense. And I heard Ladarius Green could come back, and that could be a huge addition for the playoffs as well. But like I said, defensively, I think it has to do with the run game. They need to step up and play better than they have over the past 2 weeks. Who's your player of the game?
Kobe Hamilton catching the big pass at the end of the game, I guess.
Offensively, Kobe Hamilton. Yeah, 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Not a bad game. Like you said, DeMarcus Ayers came up, had a solid game. 5 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. I'll give it to Darius Hayward-Bay. Why not? He had the big 46-yard reception, and he came down and forced that fumble before that guy could get into the end zone there for 6, which was a big play as well.
Darius Hayward all day.
Please believe it. How about defensively?
Sean Davis led the team in tackles, recovered that fumble. I guess I was going to think about giving it to Landry Jones for recovering the fumble in the end zone, but no, block that dude.
Defensively, Landry Jones.
I'll give it to Sean Davis. Young guy, he's flying around. The Steelers' defense is a totally different defense with him in there.
I like what I seen out of Bud Dupree this week. He was one of the top players on his defense as well, had 7 tackles, came up with a sack. He's looking good. He didn't play for a while this season. What did you say? He has 4.5 sacks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in limited playing time, not bad. What did he have last year? 4?
Yeah.
So he looks good moving forward. This guy looks like he can be a playmaker, and he had a pretty nice game.
Ball. Was it a mistake to sit the starters? Do you think they'll be rusty?
No, I don't think it was a mistake at all. We said it in the preview that they should sit as many as possible. It's just like having a bye.
Well, that's it. That's all I got. You got anything else?
No.
You didn't even watch the whole game. Fans, follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep clicking subscribe, just not back and forth all day, because that'll drive Dash crazy.